Hello, I'm Pete Lockett. Welcome to this first instalment of the beginner's toolbox for CAJON. Now, this is a whole new series, and what I'm hoping to be able to present is the very beginning elements of numerous percussion instruments that you could bring into your rhythmic world. So this is not just for percussionists, but also for drum set players who might want to add a little bit of percussion into their arsenal of sounds and their, what they can offer in the studio and live with different bands. Now, what I would say is that the more you can offer in a situation when you're working with someone, particularly in the beginning, you're working with a new singer-songwriter or you're working with someone for the first time. If you can go in and you have a little bit of programming as well as your drum set playing, and you have a little bit of percussion, some basic stuff, it's going to put you in a more advantageous position to be able to secure more work with that artist and be recommended word of mouth with other artists and stuff like that. So to be able to get a foothold in the world of percussion, we've got this series here in Rhythm. It's kind of like a beginner's toolbox for various percussion instruments. We're starting out with the CAJON, which is this beautiful instrument that I'm sitting on here. An instrument with an amazing history and heritage and tradition and techniques, and so much in the instrument and the music where you find the CAJON played. Now, traditionally, it was an instrument that kind of grew out of the fact that during the times of the horrendous slave trade, the slaves weren't permitted to have drums and use drums. And so they would play on whatever, their drive and their desire and their love and the spirit of music was so strong for them that they had to play music on whatever, music and rhythm on whatever they could find and whatever they could make. And in this instance, they used kind of tea chests or whatever they could find. And that's the origins of the instrument, which was in Peru at that time. So one of the main traditions that you find for the CAJON is Peruvian traditional music. And then in the latter part of the 1900s, it became very commonplace in flamenco music. It's rumoured that Paco de Lucia was on tour in Peru, and in the flight the gear had gone missing, the percussionist's gear, and they didn't know what to, at the time he would play congas and stuff that you would normally hear in scenarios before that period, and they was like, well, what are we going to play? And then they managed to get a Peruvian CAJON, and it worked brilliantly in the music. And from that point on, it became a mainstay in flamenco music from Spain. So they're the two main traditions. Now, probably from late 1990s, early to late 1990s, there was a boom with the CAJON. Numerous percussion manufacturers started making CAJONs, and CAJON became a very popular instrument within the Western world. Now, it's still very popular today. Loads and loads of different companies make CAJONs. This is a great LP CAJON with a Havana kind of finish to it. Great instrument. But there are many instruments to choose from with the CAJON. So it's a very popular instrument. And once it's abstracted out of traditional Peruvian or traditional, Spanish flamenco, then there's a whole lot of opportunities that you can explore different techniques with this instrument. Now, for me, it's a mainstay in a lot of my percussion sessions because it's so versatile, and it kind of lends itself to so many different rhythmic approaches, be it Indian with the split hand technique, or Cuban with the heel tip, and many different approaches and techniques from the percussion world are available. But also, because of the simplistic nature of the instrument, it's very easy to voice rhythms and grooves that you might find on the drum set, such as instruments played between the hi-hat, bass drum and snare drum. So this concept of hi-hat, bass drum and snare drum is something that I bring into the education with this instrument in particular, because what it does is opens up many doorways for drum set players to be able to access their drum set vocabulary on on this instrument. So it's a great doorway into the world of percussion, and that's why we've kind of chosen it as the first instrument that we're going to look at in this series. Now the instrument has three main sounds, and we can equate those or compare them in a way to the drum set: bass drum, hi-hat and snare drum. So we have the bass tone, we have the what the Spanish would call the sharp tone. Some people might call it the slap stroke. Bass, slap, and then we have the touch tone. So that would kind of be the hi-hat. So bass tone would be obviously the bass drum. The sharp tone or slap stroke would be the snare drum, and then the touch tone, kind of with the tip of the fingers. We're going to talk about the strokes in a minute, but I'm just explaining the strokes that we're going to look at. We've got so with the three, you can kind of access your drum set vocabulary up to a point, and start to get some ideas happening. Now, I would just like to point out that this is the beginning of a doorway into the instrument. If you wanted to look at the tradition of the instrument, Spanish tradition or Peruvian tradition, then it's a massive study. The vocabulary and the depth of material is huge. We're not really going to be looking so much at that in this series. It's really the first step toolbox, if you like, basic tones, and to be able to play a couple of grooves. So it's not a traditional study, but hopefully it's something that can get you started on the instrument. So let's start to look at some of the tones. First of all, the bass tone. Now this is played with the center of the palm kind of on the drum, and when it strikes, the fingers kind of come off a little bit. What's very important is how far your hand comes into the drum. Okay, so each cajon, each specific individual cajon will have a bass tone that will sing in a different place than other cajons. So you might be used to having a cajon where the bass drum, where the bass tone will sing out here. Other drums it might be further down. So with each drum you need to find the sweet spot and take it from there. So with this one, the sweet spot is kind of this far in. Now if I start further out, you'll hear that there's no bass tone at all. So I'll start further out and I'll move further in, then you'll hear the sweet spot, then I'll go past it, and so then you'll hear it disappear. So you can see how the tone changes as you move your hand in the drum. So it's a matter of finding that sweet spot where you get that rich bass tone. So the next up is the touch tone. Now this is a very subtle tone. Some people kind of play this a little bit too prominently. The Spanish traditional players tend to play it with or a lot of them anyway, tend to play it with the outer three fingers, and just where your hand is naturally hanging over the corner of the drum. So you can see it's a very subtle sound. You're kind of a touch stroke, basically. We're going to look at the slap stroke in a minute, but let's look at a few combinations first of all, just with these two strokes. So example one, we're just going to look at 16th notes with the touch stroke. 2, 3, 4, and right, left, 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 right, left. So although this seems a very simple and basic exercise, it's really important to focus on it and get those strokes even between the two hands. So you don't want it to sound like this, for example, with one louder than the other. It's got to be very smooth and even. And notice that you kind of hear that subtle kind of snare tone with the instrument. Now, traditionally with the old tea chests, it would have been that the front head, the front of the tea chest, would have just been slightly unscrewed, so you get that kind of rattling sound. Some cajons you still have that today. More often than not, you'll have some sort of snare mechanism of strings stretched across the inside of the front head. So that's where the snare drum kind of buzz is coming from. Next up, we're going to look at the bass tone. Now, we're going to play it with both hands to begin with. In a lot of the work, a majority of the bass tones are played with the right hand. And it's sometimes a little bit harder in the beginning to get a good bass tone with the left hand. But after some time, it does become, you get it together. And so remember that it's just this area of the palm, and we want both hands. And again, we're going to do the 16th notes: 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. So it's unusual that you'd ever hear that within the context of a musical phrase, but it's important to try and work on that and kind of get it within the context of being smooth and even, and with the left hand playing that tone evenly. So now let's start to combine some of those tones together. We're just going to start with one bass tone. This is example 3. We're going to start with one bass tone with the right hand, and then 3 touch tones. So we'll have E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. So you've got to move smoothly from here to here. So what you can do is strip that out as a movement, and you can just have what the right hand would be playing, which is the next example. We're going to start to look at the slap stroke. Now, the slap stroke, or the sharp tone, is very similar to how you would have the slap stroke played on congas or bongos or other instruments. And the best way to describe it is as though it's a bouncing ball. So if you imagine you've got a tennis ball and you're bouncing it, and you catch it and grab it. So if you take that motion then onto the instrument, kind of got this grabbing motion. So it's the fingertips that strike. So if we compare that to the touch tone, there's the touch tone. Hear how much more prominent that stroke is. So now let's look at a combination with the slap stroke, or the sharp tone, and the touch tones. Again, we'll just have one sharp tone and 3 touch tones. Sharp, touch, touch, touch. E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and Now let's look at a combination that involves the bass tone, the sharp tone, and the touch tones in a similar way than you might find a 16th note regular groove on drum set, with the bass tone on 1 and 3 and the sharp tone, slap tone or snare drum in our kind of analogy on 2 and 4. This is example 5. All right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. Notice how subtle the touch tones are and how much the other tones pop out. Now let's change it up a bit. Example 6, we just add one extra bass tone. E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a right, left, 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 right, left. Finally, in example 7, we're just going to reverse that around. So we'll put the 2 bass tones on the first 2 eighth notes of the 2/4 bar. E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a right, left, 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 right, left. So hopefully this is enough to get us started with the instrument. There's a massive amount of study if you want to go on and you know, look at the traditional rhythms and how the traditional techniques work. Next time we're going to look at a few other variations along this line. But I hope you enjoyed this instalment, and see you next time for more. Hello, Pete Lockett here. Instalment 2 of our little look at the basic building blocks of technique on the cajon. For those of you that didn't see the last issue, this is one of the go-to instruments for me on sessions. It's a great instrument to be able to you know, cross bridges and do lots of different musical styles and lots of different ways to integrate different rhythmic patterns into music outside of the traditional musics of Peru and Spain, where this is predominantly found in the traditional setting. So last time we were looking at the basic 3 tones: the bass tone, the touch tone, and the slap tone or the sharp tone. We're going to just start to build up a few more variations on that. So last time we just had the sharp tone or the slap tone with the right hand. So we're just going to put in an additional left hand accent or slap tone in the basic groove that we finished off with towards the end of the last issue. So we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, and. All right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. Notice the last slap stroke is coming with the left hand, not the right hand. And we want to make sure that both of those slap strokes are kind of equal in volume and attack. Now example 2, we had one additional slap stroke in there. And notice how much it changes the feel of the groove. So for example 3, we're going to put the last slap stroke on the 8th of the 16th notes, and we're going to play that instead on the bass tone. So it will sound like this. Now both hands have to come in to get the bass tone feeling even. 2, 3, 4, and. Still right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. For example 4, we're going to mix it up a little bit. We're going to have a more kind of drum set style kind of approach to the groove. Now, it's very important that to bear in mind that as drum set players, you can access your whole vocabulary. Once you start to get comfortable with these ideas, there are so many rhythmic patterns that you would have learned that you can also adapt for the instrument in the same way. So let's look at example 4. Two, 3, 4. Right, left, 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 right, left. So with this one, all of the bass tones are played with the right hand and all of the slap tones with the left hand. So notice all of the rhythms and grooves and approaches that we've had so far have involved single strokes. So we're still at a very basic level and a basic way of applying some different groove contours and different rhythmic approaches. One of the things that we start to find when we look at percussion, very often it's not approached the same way as drum set. If we look at the drum set, for example, and we have the bass drum on 1 and 3 and the snare drum on 2 and 4, then the lower notes are, on the down and the higher notes are on the up. Now, a lot of rhythmic work in ethnic music around the world often is the opposite. So you'll have the sharp or the snare drum at the beginning of a bar and the bass tones later on in the bar. So you get a kind of completely different perspective of how to approach a groove. Now this is really valuable, even regardless of whether you're learning cajon as a drum set player or bongos or different percussion. You can start to look at some of these concepts and abstract some of these concepts out and see how you can use that in your drum set playing as well. So even the idea of reversing where the bass tone is in a groove or a rhythm can be a very useful tool in developing different rhythmic approaches within the musical settings that you find yourself. So this is example 5, and notice that the bass tone is not on the downbeat. 1, 2, 3, 4, and. 2, 3, 4. Right, left, 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 right, left. Or we can add an extra bass drum in there. So if we look at example 6, we've got an extra bass tone. One, 2, 3, 4. Another thing that happens very often with different percussions around the world is a lot of the grooves are played with a little bit of a lilt. So this isn't always appropriate in a modern day non-ethnic idiom where a lot of music is quantized and written to grids. But the lilt thing is a really great thing to add in. Certainly for me as a percussionist, when I go in, it's often to add kind of a live element and a live feel. And some of that is not just simply about the dynamics and the tones and the way that you're playing the instrument, but it's also about the feel and where you're playing it ahead or behind of the groove. So if I'll play a couple of bars straight 16ths without any lilt, and then I'll do some lilt just so you can kind of hear the difference. And we're just going to use that basic example that we've just had. And here it's kind of got like a lazy kind of lolloping sort of feel, but often that will work really well with different musical settings. So this combination of rhythm is very common all around the world. This basic division of 3-3-2, which is what we had in example 5. 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2. So this kind of contour of groove you can start to apply any different tones to. So if we put the bass tone back on the downbeat, we kind of get like a very common rhythm that we hear a lot in drum set and around the world with different percussion. So this is example 7. 1 2 3 4. Or we could reverse that and we could start with the slap tone on the downbeat and then have the second of the two, hits in the skeletal structure on the bass tone. So this will involve a bass tone with the left hand. We're still right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. Right, left, 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 right, left. Now, with a lot of these grooves, we've only been looking at right, left as a sticking combination. Of course, we could do the same as we do on drum set. We can have different sticking configurations or hand combinations, whatever you want to call it. So this could equally be, instead of right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, could be right, left, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, left, right, left. Right, left, left, right, left, left, right, left. And you can combine any configuration with the right hand, doing either a bass tone or a slap tone, whilst the left hand does only the ghost notes or the touch strokes. And you can create grooves just by keeping right, left, left, right, left, left, right, left. You can start to make many different patterns. You can put any different combinations together. Now, that's kind of it for the examples, but I just want to talk a little bit about concepts as well. So we've looked at what we can do with just single strokes, for example, on the cajon. There's a whole myriad of possibilities. We can also use different rudiments such as paradiddles, and we can go on to split hand technique and many different things to do loads and loads of variations on techniques and rhythms with the instrument. So I'm just going to show you a little bit just with improvising on a couple of these things. So I'll start just with single strokes. So I'm just going to play only using single strokes so you can see how some of that can be applied to the instrument in different ways. So just with single strokes, you could use the paradiddle, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. And again, we've only got bass tone, touch tone, and the slap tone. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Or you could use the paradiddle shifted off by 1/16, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left. Or you could start to use the split hand technique. The split hand technique comes from India, although we're not going to look at it in depth in this series. Just to introduce you to some of those ideas, it involves splitting the hands into two striking units, 3-fingered striking unit and a 1-fingered striking unit. You can do it with both hands. We're going to start with the left hand. Or with the right hand, 3-1. So you can kind of get some rolls and different stuff. Or split hand technique with both hands and paradiddles and single strokes. So lots of amazing things to discover on this instrument if you choose to look further. If you look at the examples and the stuff we've had, you've got a good building block to be able to get some basics down. And, why don't you try it out with, a singer-songwriter or someone that you're working with, or one of your own recording projects at home. It's a brilliant instrument. I'd really highly recommend spending some time with it and getting some stuff down with it. So I hope to see you soon, and don't forget to email me at pete@drum.com if you've got any questions. Hello, Pete Lockett here. We're going to be looking this time at the bongos. Now, for me, the bongos are a really underused instrument outside of their traditional idioms. It's a brilliant instrument to take on to a session or to add into the mix with any recording project or live project. It's super easy to get around and transport. It cuts through any music, so high pitched and such a great sounding instrument that I'd highly recommend you look into the bongos as an instrument to add into the mix. To be honest, even adding it as another tone within the drum set is a cool thing. I remember Benny Greb used to have on the left, he used to have a couple of bongos and a few different percussion instruments, which was all he used it amazingly musically, really cool. And that was even with sticks, which can sound pretty good. Now, traditionally, we find pairs of drums like this all over the world, you know, from India to Azerbaijan to the Middle East, obviously Latin America, everywhere you find pairs of drums. They're many different names. The pair of drums that we're most, used to seeing are these traditional Afro-Cuban bongos. Now, as I say, it's an absolutely fantastic instrument. For me, great as a solo voice, but also really cool as a percussive, building block and as something to bed into a mix of stuff that you're putting down. Now, it's a very simple construct of drum. You can see through the centuries, how this would have been developed with a simple, shell and a skin. Now, traditionally, these drums are, you can see they're single-headed drums. These are the Remo skins, so you can get different natural skins, which also sound pretty cool. In fact, in Cuba they often used X-ray film for bongo heads, which also sounded absolutely great. So the heads are held on by this two rings of metal and the tuning bolts and tensioning rods. So it's a very simple construct of drum. They're tuned very high, so there's a lot of, when you first tune them up, there's a lot of tension that you would put on with I tend to use an adjustable spanner, but you can use any sort of spanner. There's a lot of tension that's put on the drums when you tune them up, and you'll often hear them, hear the skins popping, and people sometimes get a little bit scared about, that they're going to damage the drums because they hear these sounds, but it's not going to damage the drums. You just got to tune them up really high. One of the important things is that if it's natural heads, then you need to tune them down by quite a bit if you're not playing them, because depending on the humidity and the weather, the heads can split open if you haven't tuned them down. So, and also even with the Remo heads, if you don't tune them down, sometimes it can pull the shell out of shape a little bit, or it's just a lot of tension on the drum perpetually. Personally, I never tune them down with the Remo heads. The heads stay nicely in tune, and I've never had any problems. But you might feel that you don't want to take that risk, and that's absolutely cool. So a brilliant pair of drums. Let's look at the playing position. So the bongos are held between the legs in this manner. Now it can be, sometimes you've got to think about where the tension bolts are the rods are coming. So if you can slot that rod there in the crease of your knee, then that's kind of cool. So there's slightly angle like this is possible. One of the things that I do with some drums is loosen them off and turn the chassis around so that the tension bolts fall in different places, and so that kind of makes it, you know, sometimes a little bit more comfortable. It takes a little while to get used to holding the drums in this manner, particularly if you're playing for a long period of time. There's a lot of tension on the legs, and so, you know, you have to slowly get used to that and not hold them too tight. Is an important thing. You start to, you know, trap you know, your circulation, or stop your circulation a little bit, and that's not a great idea. Now, alternatively, you can get, there's stands and there's different ways that you can play them. So if you're not playing them as a standalone instrument like this, then you know, you can have them on a stand in a percussion setup with congas and timbales, or, you know, batar drums, or whatever you want to put together. Now, as we said in previous articles, this is really the kind of basic toolbox sort of approach to you know, getting started with percussion, having some basics, so we can add this sound into our arsenal when we go into the studio, and have some extra tones and sounds to play with whoever we're working with. It's always advantageous to the more you've got, then basically the more likely you are to get called back on gigs and sessions and different things. So percussion, programming, maybe if you played a little bit of piano, it all adds to what you can offer a band. So obviously it's 2 drums. If we were to get deep into the you know, the traditional style, the Cuban, Afro-Cuban style of bongo playing, then there's a lot of muting with different you know, with the thumb and the fingers. We're going to look at a little bit that in the next one, but to begin with, we're just going to look at the basic open tones on the drums and accents. So obviously we've got 2 drums. Both drums are struck slightly differently with the hands to get the tone that's required. So the high bongo. Now, first of all, hear how highly tuned it is. So it's really tuned high. So don't be scared to crank it up with the spanner and make it nice and highly tuned. So the basic stroke on the small bongo is played near the rim. We call this the open tone. So this is with the single finger, or more traditionally, you'd play with the full fingers of the hand, or I prefer with the one finger for a lot of the staccato work that I do. You know, you've also, you know, you bear in mind, it's what I want to achieve. That's what I want to achieve with something. As an individual, you know, we've all got different ways of approaching music and making, you know, music on instruments and on drums. So different ways to approach the instrument is valuable for each individual in different ways. So you've got to remember to try and develop your own character, your own personality, and your own voice with all of these things. It's not just what is presented to you in the lessons or the you know, video material that you might see. So we're going to start with the basic 16th notes on the high bongo, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, and we're going to just pop a few accents in, and it's going to sound a little bit like this. Is example 1. Notice how the touch strokes in between the accented notes are really quite quiet. With the one finger or with the full fingers. So now let's just add a bass note into that, a bass tone on the larger drum. Now this is played. You notice that with the strokes on this drum, we're like right back near the edge. With the larger bongo, we come in a little bit, and the bass, the optimum bass tone is played with the hand into the drum slightly. Notice how much lower tuned this drum is. Now I'm playing with the full hand. Let me move the hand back a bit and you hear how the tone, how the bass goes out of the tone. So this portion of the hand, the underside of the hand, hits the rim, hits the rim of the drum. Again, with this stroke, you can also play that with the one finger. Not many traditional players would play with the one-fingered approach. How much more full-bodied the full hand is. So let's look at the next example. Now we're just going to add one bass tone into the groove that we had before. Example 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, and. This is with the one finger. Or with the full fingers. Now let's change that up a bit and just put a couple of different accents in there. Example 3. So for example 4, we're going to add a couple of extra notes on the bass, on the larger bongo for the bass tone. So the beginning of the second bar, we're going to have a couple of extra bass tones. For example 5, we're going to play a groove that's very, very common across percussion and drum sets, kind of like a samba feel. One of the things about playing this is that because we're leading with the right, we're still right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, as we see in the notation. We have a silent note as the right hand comes over to the larger drum. So because the lilt that we want with the groove is and so that means that when we're coming over to play on the larger bongo, we have a kind of ghost note also with on the larger bongo. So notice how the strokes with both hands are quite even. So the accents are kind of the same volume and the same attack, and the open tones on the larger bongo are also quite equal. And then the high drum also, the notes are very evenly balanced. Very important that one hand isn't louder than the other, otherwise a lot of the patterns and phrases won't make any sense at all. So we're still making great headway, still only using right, left, right, left, right, left as a hand pattern or sticking pattern or way of constructing the rhythms. So it's often overlooked how useful such a simple figure can be. People always want to move on to complex different stickings and different hand patterns and stuff like that. But if you look at the masters play, you see how much they do with the real simple elements of their instrument, whether it's drum set or percussion or whatever, So it's really important that you kind of focus in detail on those, the simpler elements, particularly when you're, starting to get the instrument together. So we're just going to look at a couple of other brief examples, looking at different accents. Most of the time, or very often with bongos, you're going to hear the bass tone on the up rather than on the downbeat. But of course, we're working outside of any traditional idiom really, and so you can kind of put any structures you like together. If we go back to something we did earlier in the series with the cajon, the simple 3-3-2 combination, it's quite useful to see how we can begin to employ that on bongos or whatever else we choose to look at. So we're going to start with the downbeat on the larger drum, and we just have a couple of accents on the smaller drum. And remember, the groove is 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2. Or we can try slightly different accents. We could have 2 3 3. This is one of the great things about if you start to look at the little components that you find in different rhythms. You can rearrange them and juggle them in any which way you like. So 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3. So lots of ways you can start to put different things together. Work out whether you like the full hand or the one-fingered. Approach to playing the instrument. Make it your own, and I hope to see you soon for the next issue. Hi, Pete Lockett here. Welcome to part 2 of our exploration of the very basic toolbox for the bongos. Remember that a lot of these lessons and tutorials are really aimed at drummers as well as percussionists, with the idea that we can begin to get some of the fundamentals of some percussion instruments, so you can add them to your list of available instruments when you record or work with someone on a new project. So last time we had a few basic notes on the bongos. We had the bass tone on the lower bongo, with the open tone on the higher bongo, and accents, and we built everything around that, using again focusing very much on the simple right left hand configuration to build all of our patterns. In this lesson we're going to look at a few more strokes. We're going to look at some muting techniques with the thumb and the fingertips, which create different sounds on the smaller bongo, and we're also going to add in the slap stroke. So we're going to start off with the rhythms that we had last time, but instead of the accented notes, we're going to add the slap strokes. Now, the slap stroke, as you might remember if you looked at the cajon lesson a few issues ago, is very much like if you're bouncing a ball and you grab it and you stop it dead in its tracks. It's kind of like this bouncing sort of motion. You kind of got the ball and grab the ball, and that kind of creates this cupping position of the hand. And the slap stroke is very similar, both on bongos or djembe, congas, cajon. It's kind of like a hit and a grab. Very cool sound, very dynamic, really pops out, and is a kind of nice, loud, accented tone, and can certainly add a lot of dynamics into performing on the bongos. It does take a little bit of time to kind of get the slap stroke together, so make sure you spend a long time like looking at exactly how the hand positions and how it's how it's being put together. I mean, if we strip it down, slow motion, we kind of see the hand comes in and grabs slightly like this. Now that's a hit and grab sort of motion. Very staccato. So let's start to put this into a first example for this issue. Now, remember last time we had our rhythm based on 3-3-2. 1-2-3, 1-2-3, 1-2, 1-2-3, 1-2-3, 1-2, and we were playing with the open bass tone on the downbeat, and then the accents on the high drum and the ghost notes in between. 1-2-3, 1-2-3, 1-2, 1-2-3, 1-2-3, 1-2. So now we're going to do the same, but with the slap stroke instead of the accents on the high drum. So now let's look at the same thing, but instead we'll have 2-3-3. 1-2, 1-2-3, 1-2-3, 1-2, 1-2-3, 1-2-3. So now let's add in a few different strokes into this whole mix of things. Now, it's very common in percussion that you have various muting tones and ways to create different harmonics and resonance from instruments. With the bongos, this is normally done with the thumb and the fingertips of the weaker hand, in my case, the left hand. So you notice if I've got the thumb on the drum, and I strike with the right hand, you kind of get a very distinct sounding muted tone. Now, if I put my fingers on the head, you'll see it's slightly more open, lower in pitch. Thumbs, fingers. So this is the first thing to experiment with, just with the thumb down and hitting, fingers down and hitting. Open. So we've got 3 different tones there. What we're going to start to do is piece this into a rhythm that's called the martillo, which means the hammer in Spanish. It's one of the formative rhythms that you hear on bongos, and for me is a really important technique that I use a lot in creating many different types of rhythms that aren't basically part of the martillo structure, but use the idea of the thumb muting and the fingers muting and creating different patterns around that. Now, if we look at example 3, we'll see that that's notated with the thumb coming down on the last 16th note of the bar before. So that's leading into the downbeat, which will become the first closed stroke. This is followed by the fingertips that fall down like this. So this is the first exercise. thumb just comes down flat. You can see it's completely flat on the head. Normal strike, either with all 4 fingers or 1 finger. Traditionally it would be all 4 fingers. Fingertips come down. Now in a sequence. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hear how we get all those different tones coming out of the drum with the muting, with the thumb and the fingers. You can put a little bit of emphasis into the thumb stroke that leads to this first accent. So now we're going to add in a bass tone on the upbeat at the end of the bar of 2/4. Remember the first rhythm that we did in the first bongo lesson? This will be the version of that, but with the muting with the left hand instead. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, so this all sounds pretty cool. Let's look at example 5. Now, with example 5, we're going to add in one of the open note accents on the left hand. This is very characteristic of this martillo pattern. It sounds like this, first of all. That kind of anticipated last 16th note of the bar coming out onto the high-pitched open tone. Now, this is really, we're replacing the thumb with a stroke on the edge of the drum instead. So it involves a little bit of, kind of arrangement of the hands, because now not only are you moving between the thumb and the fingertips, you're also coming back and substituting one of those notes with an open tone. So it's a pretty cool rhythm. Once you spent a little bit of time getting it together and working with the, the different pitches of the muted thumb tone and the coming back for the open tone, it's a very cool rhythm and works in a lot of different scenarios, not just within a traditional setting. So finally, we're going to look at an example, a slower version of this kind of martillo rhythm, where we get a pattern on the lower bongo that kind of slightly reflects what you would find on conga drums playing a tumbao, which is a repetitive pattern played on one of the conga drums. So this involves keeping the rhythm the same as in the simple bar of martillo without the open note, and adding one extra note on the lower bongo at the end of the bar. So it will sound like this. This is example 6. So you notice you're getting the double and the thumb on the second double. And then you've got to come back quickly onto the high-pitched bongo to get that first note. So a very cool, rhythm to spend some time with and get together. Bongos are amazing. For me, they're one of the things that I use on such a huge number of sessions and live projects. They're an amazing, amazing instrument. They cut through any sort of mix. They add a real sort of kind of, forward momentum and energy to a track. So I'd recommend spending a bit of time with them, getting them down, and hopefully taking them into your rhythmic arena. And I look forward to seeing what you come up with. We're going to look at shakers in this episode in Rhythm Magazine, online and in print. So shakers are kind of a pretty standard thing. Every percussionist is gonna, have shakers in their kit bag when they go to sessions and gigs. Everyone's under the kind of illusion that shakers are easy to play, but the number of times I've been in the studio and had to replace shakers that someone's put down as someone in the band or the drummer or someone like that, and it's quite an amazing thing really. But a shaker is almost like a kind of bonding agent between various elements of the track. It can kind of pull lots of different things together. So actually being able to play, shaker in a kind of meaningful way is really quite an art, and does take a little bit of time. Of course, you can't compare it to the complexity of North Indian tabla or an instrument like that. But all the same, shakers have a lot of skill involved when it comes to actually making a track actually work. So there are of course many different shakers. There are maracas with incredible Venezuelan technicians who play amazing maracas. There are kashishi, many different types of shakers. The shakers we're going to be looking at in this next couple of episodes is the cylindrical shaker. Now here we have a cylindrical shaker. This is by LP. This is one of my favourite shakers. Very delicate sort of sound. Now shakers come in all shapes and sizes. This is a much heavier. You'll notice how much heavier the sound of this shaker is in comparison to. There's a lot more beads and stuff inside that shaker. This is a shaker that I made myself, which is actually, I made this 30 years ago, I think, and I've used it on more recordings than probably anything that I've ever used as a shaker. This is actually a Sharwood's curry spice pot, and it's full of mung beans, or half full of mung beans, and it's really great. Really great staccato, shaker sound. Now, one of the shakers that I use a lot as well is this LP Cyclops shaker, which is particularly for louder live gigs. It's really good, and also for sound effects, kind of like rain stick sort of swells and stuff like that. It's really useful. It's a really loud shaker. See how much louder than the other ones it is. So it's a shaker that I really like, and I use it a lot. I'm going to use it to do this first set of lessons. Now, it's actually really tricky if you've got a long track. I remember the first time I was in the studio and doing a shaker track and a shaker on a track, and it was 5 minutes long, And I thought, oh, the studio person, oh, you put some shaker on. Okay, you start with the shaker, put a bed down, and work on top of that. So anyway, I was at like 2 minutes into it, and your arm is literally dropping off. So it's also a bit of a workout, not only for one arm, of course, unless you do 2 shakers, one in each hand, and then you got complete workout. So anyway, the first thing to get together is a simple backwards and forwards motion that is hurtling the beans or the innards onto the outside shell and then back again. Now this shaker is really good to demonstrate these specific movements, and you want to start off very slowly so you get a very definite attack point on the outward and inbound strikes. So this is example 1, which is just basically 1/8 notes with an even backwards and forwards motion with no accents. Now you can see with this shaker I'm holding it with my fingers to balance it. With a different type of shaker, the hand position again is quite similar. So just a simple back that you're throwing it away from yourself with a definite movement and back again. And the arm's actually quite stiff. It's not one of those instruments where you're it's kind of all relaxed and you're flowing. It's quite a kind of stiff motion in a way. Now this 1/8 note shaker pattern is a shaker pattern that you don't really hear that often, but it's a shaker pattern that is really, really useful on a track. It really does kind of lays down a really great solid rhythmic bed, and then when you switch into a double time shaker pattern, that kind of really does open things up. So although we look at this and this is example 1 and you think it's 1/8 notes, and then you'll probably think, oh, I want to go on to 16th notes, I'm not really see a value in that. This is I use this 1/8 note shaker pattern as much as I use any 16th note. So now we can start to get some accents into this pattern. So we're going to add an accent, as example 2, on beat 2 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you'll notice the thing that defines the accent is that merely I'm simply travelling further to get the accent and bring that out. Now let's put that accent on the beat. For example 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, so far we've been looking at 1/8 notes. So now we can start to go up and add 16th notes into the mix. So this is exactly the same motion but faster. So again, you can do this without accents. Or you can add accents in either on the beat or off the beat. or on the beat. Then you can start to combine the 8th note pattern and the 16th note pattern. So if we look at example 5, we're just going to go from 1 bar of 8th notes to 1 bar of 16th notes. 3, 4, and. Right, now we've got this far, we can go back to that same pattern, the 8th notes, 2 bars of 8th notes or 1 bar of 8th notes and 2 bar or 1 bar of 16th notes, and we can start to add accents into the mix. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned about the accents is that because of the motion of playing the accent away from you, you kind of get a slight accent on the note before. So have a listen. You kind of get that extra accent. That's kind of hard to avoid and becomes part of the lilt of the shaker pattern actually. But you play it in such a way as to not overemphasize the additional note. So now let's look at the 8th note and 16th note shaker patterns together with the accent on the downbeats. Or we can play that the other way round and have those accents on the upbeats, so on the 2 and 4, or on the and of each quarter note. 1, 2, 3, 4, and. So that's the introduction for now for the basic building blocks of shaker patterns. Next time we're going to look on to some other additional techniques and some rolls and different stuff. So I hope you've enjoyed this introduction into the world of shakers. They are incredibly useful to get into your repertoire, even with the drum set playing. Bass drum, snare drum, hi-hat and right-hander shaker is a very cool sound, and you're kind of seeing more and more of that stuff recently. So hope you enjoyed the lesson, and I'll see you soon. We started to look at the basics last time of simple shaker patterns, some 16th and 8th notes, some accents. Another useful thing to start to bring into your shaker repertoire is a short roll. So literally that easy. So we can start to bring this in at different points in the bar. I use it a lot, kind of leading out of sections and into kind of changes and stuff like that. So we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, and. So we're rolling on the and of 4. Of course, that roll will be kind of played slightly differently depending on whatever tempo you're at. So for example, Or so it's going to come out differently depending on whatever tempo that you're playing at. Or you could take a roll that lasted the whole of beat 4. Let's see what that sounds like. Of course, you wouldn't do that throughout as a pattern. You're just going to do the roll leading into a different section or a change or arrangement or something like that. So you can practice it around in a loop to try and get comfortable with it. But at the end of the day, you're just going to be doing that type of fill or embellishment every time you're coming up to a change, or you're going to do there's something different happening in the music. Another great way to break up shaker patterns and make something interesting is to start to put gaps in between the forward and backward motions. So if we were to think of a pattern that was, say, for example, duck, 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 and then we would have away, back, away, and then the reverse, back, away, back. So you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, and. Or you could have that reversed. So you'd have da 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 da. Da 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 da. 1, 2, 3, 4, and. Of course, you could also do those as 16th notes. So we'll go back to the 16th note version of example 3. Da 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 da. These sort of patterns can be really useful in terms of creating some sort of different top end pattern that will conflict or will kind of embellish or change or interact with a hi-hat pattern, for example, or other top end stuff that you've put into a mix. Let's just go through example 3 and example 5 as 8th notes and 16th notes. 3, 4, and. And again, we can reverse that in the same way that we did with example 4. Taka-dim, 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 da. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, we can combine that, example 4 and example 6. 8th notes with that pattern, 16th notes with that pattern. 3, 4, and. Then we can start to look at groups of 3. So for example, at the moment, we've got groups of 2. But if we made that slightly longer, tuck, tuck-a-dina, tuck, tuck-a-dina, tuck, tuck-a-dina, tuck, and we use the same idea. This is the basis for example 7, where we use the grouping of 3, 3, 2, as we did earlier in the CAJON lessons. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Notice how the accent coming backwards is not as loud as the or as staccato as the accent going forwards. There's just that little bit of decay when you get the backwards accent. Now let's do the final example, which is a version of example 7, but instead of tut tut at the end, we have takadina. So we fill in those two 8th notes and make them into a group of 16th notes. And notice how that I'm accenting the groups of 16th notes at the end. 3, 4, and. So these little patterns that you know are seemingly very easy conceptually to get together, they take a little bit of time, but it's not that complex and can really add a lot into a recording or a mix or a track, or even doing something live, mixing that in with your drum set playing. It's all very you know, usable material and works really well in the studio. So I hope you enjoy it, and I look forward to seeing you next time for another random instrument. So when is a triangle not a triangle? When it's not triangular, of course. So I'm Pete Lockett. Welcome to the introduction to the world of triangles. Again, this is the you know, often on the receiving end of many jokes, the triangle player and all that. You know, we know all those jokes, and in actual fact, the triangle is not an easy instrument to play if you play it rhythmically. I mean, actually, to be honest, even if you have to count off 640 pages of a piece of music and then do one hit, that's not easy either, actually. You've got to really concentrate to get to that point for that one hit on the triangle. Anyway, triangles come in many different shapes and sizes. This is a smaller triangle. Of course, earlier we saw that the circular triangle. Philosophically, I don't know that there is such a thing, but we have one here in rhythm, a circular triangle. Now, this is a mainstay. This is something that you would use in sessions a lot. It's one of those things that in you know, pop and rock and different music, one of those things that's, I call it like an invisible percussion instrument, in that you put it in the mix and you can't hear it. The listener wouldn't know it was there. But when you take it out, there's a huge gaping, great big absence when it's not there. And it does such an amazing job in that super top end frequency that it's a really vital you know, thing to have in for some tracks. One of the things with percussion, and you know, for those your drummers that are watching this and thinking about learning a few bits of percussion, like we've been looking at some basics here in this series, one of the things you really need to be thinking about is frequencies. So for me as a percussionist, if I go into the studio and the drummer has laid down a load of stuff that's mainly you know, kind of low or bottom end, like floor toms, and you know, it's a very kind of low end stuff, then I'm going to try and aim for more top end things like shakers, triangles, bongos, stuff that will cut through. If it's a regular type of drum set approach, bass, kick, snare, then a lot of stuff in the mid range would fit in terms of the tones of the percussion. And then if the drum set player is playing more top end heavy stuff, then low-end percussion is going to work a lot better. So thinking about frequencies is a really important thing, and of course we can be aware of that all the way through, even with these few basic things that we've started to look at in these rhythm articles. You can think about frequencies and think about what to put on. Now the triangle is one of those things that will pretty much work across the board. Even if the drummer is playing top-end stuff, this is even higher. So that's why it works with so many different musical scenarios. Similarly with the shaker because it's got a very rounded attack and sound, won't really conflict with something like hi-hat or cymbals or other top-end stuff that a drummer might use. So shaker and triangle are very useful in putting into the mix with drummers without contrasting and conflicting and getting in the way of what the drummer might play. So the first thing that we would look at is the playing and holding position. Now with these triangles, some people will have some attachments, so you can hang it from a stand, for example, and play it, and of course that's very easy. Or you can have something that goes around your finger and you can hold it and play it, which allows it to resonate. The playing position of this triangle is, for me in the studio, is without any straps, and I kind of let it rest on the first finger, and that's the playing position. These fingers come round and grab. So we got open and closed. Now I'll just show you something we had prepared earlier. So this is the circular triangle that we were so excited about before. Now I'm just doing this to demonstrate the idea of what you could have on any other triangle, in that there's a clip and something that goes over your finger. So it allows you to completely let the thing resonate if you want. So for the lessons, we're going to look at the triangle in this manner. So we're holding it with the finger, and we've got open with the triangle beater. Of course, is a vital, important component of this whole scenario. Open, closed. We also have grab, which we'll look at a little bit later as well. So we're just going to start with simple open, closed, closed, closed as eighth notes. Notice that I'm closing and hitting at the same time. You can actually, as we'll look at in a later example, use the closing simply as a closing of the tone without a hit. For now, we're going to play a stroke with the triangle beater and also close at the same time. So for example 2, we're just going to add another open note towards the end of the bar. So we have 2 open notes in the bar. Example 2. Also be aware of how much you are muting the triangle with your holding hand. So this is completely held tight, and I'll slowly open it. You kind of get a harmonic. So completely closed, harmonic, open. So depending on, you know, the piece of music or whatever, however you want to approach it, you might want to play the closed notes either slightly, you know, less damped, so you get the harmonic, or completely closed, so you don't get the harmonic. So example 3, we're going to go back to the pattern that we've looked at before with the cajon. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2. Open closed closed, open closed closed, open closed. And again, the triangle beater is held, you know, more or less in the same way as you would hold a drumstick. You've got your fulcrum there, and obviously it's not as long as a drumstick. This one's got a kind of rubber thing on the end, so you can get a different tone with the triangle if required. Right then, so in example 4, we're going to look at that 3-3-2 pattern, but we're going to drift between 8th notes and 16th notes. 1 2 3 4 and. Notice the beautiful resonance of the instrument. It's a great instrument, the triangle. Really works brilliantly in tracks, and just try it on some stuff yourself and you'll be surprised at how much it cuts through. So example 5, a very simple pattern, closed open closed open. This is really effective. Deceptively simple. When you hear it in a track, it kills it. It's like really great. 1 2 3 4 and. And finally, example 6, we're just going to put another open note towards the end to resolve the bar in a different way. Hello, Pete Lockett here for the second instalment of our triangle exploration, looking at the basic building blocks of the triangle and seeing how we can incorporate some of those aspects into our percussion world or our drum set playing. As we discussed in the previous issue, the triangle is an amazing instrument for adding a real kind of momentum in the top end of a track. Either in the studio or live, but particularly in the studio, it's a real great sound frequency to fill that gives the track a lot of energy and forward momentum. Kind of like an invisible sort of sound, but a sound that is really great in propelling a track forward. So last time we looked at the basics of holding the instrument. Of course, you can use various straps to hold the triangle. You can put it on stands, and we've got this method of holding it with the one finger and allowing it to almost fully resonate. Not completely, of course, because you're losing a little bit of resonance because of the finger underneath the triangle, but not too much. So we started to look at a few basic grooves last time, and now we're going to add a few other 16th note grooves, and then we're going to start to look at the grabbing technique, where you can kind of create different length notes by grabbing in different places within the triangle groove. So we're going to start with a simple 16th note with the first 3 16th note of each quarter note played. Closed, closed, open. One, two, three, four. And again, at the moment, we're closing and grabbing at the same time we hit. Now we can play that same groove, but we can shift it off by a 16th note. So it would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and. One of the advantages of that type of approach, where you've got the offbeat with the open tone, is that really makes it pop out of the mix in a different way than it would if you're playing all the open notes on the downbeat or on the and of a note, for example. Now we're going to start to look at the grabbing technique, which will control the length of the open note. So up until now, we've grabbed and hit at the same time. So now we're going to grab afterwards to close the open note. So notice you can close it in the same way that an open hi-hat can be closed with the foot. This obviously changes the length of the triangle note, so you can play completely different style of rhythms by using this method. So we'll start to get a group of 3 together. So this is example 3. Open, grab, closed. That's the sequence. Open, grab, close. So now let's make that into a group of 4 by adding 1 extra closed note. Open, grab, closed, closed. Notice how you get the kind of the harmonic as the fingers come in and close the open note. It's kind of really cool sound the way the note gets closed in. So now let's go back to our 3-3-2 pattern that we're getting very familiar with by now, and we'll use that configuration. Open, grab, closed, open, grab, closed, and then open, grab to wind up the bar. So 3-3-2. So now we can do the same thing, but we can do 3-2-3 instead of 3-3-2. One, two, three, four. this way of rearranging simple rhythmic components is a very useful tool to take all of the things that you know and to make loads and loads of different variations out of them. So it's a very simple thing. It's, you know, age old, dating back to the, you know, ancient Indian traditions, 300, 400 BC. So this idea of rearranging simple components, at the end of the day, we want to make the most of our rhythmic vocabulary as we can. Besides learning new stuff, we can also rearrange and rethink the material that we have at hand. So finally, we're going to look at the same rhythms that we had in examples 1 and 2, but instead of having the grab and the stroke together, we're going to put them apart. So it changes the rhythm slightly. So in example 1, we had, so that open note is ringing from the and down to the start of the next quarter note. So now we're going to have the grab instead. Or the equivalent that we had in example 2, which was with the offbeat open note. Now we'll have the grab in the gap. So closed, open, grab, closed. Closed, open, grab, closed. So I hope you've enjoyed this look at the beginning components of getting the triangle together and learning some little bits that you can, you know, put into some recordings or utilise in however you deem fit. So I'm Pete Lockett. It's been great fun showing you some of this stuff, and I'll see you soon for another mystery percussion instrument. Now this drum for me is one of the most special drums that I've you know, had in my percussion arsenal for many years now. It's an absolutely beautiful drum. You can see it's got very rich low tones, great metallic ringing high tones. It's a really beautiful drum. Now I first heard this drum many years ago at a Jan Gabrick concert, and Nana Vasconcelos was playing this drum, and just in the middle of the gig he came out to the front of the stage just with an oudou and a wood block, and it was just the most incredible. Just did a solo on an oudou and a wood block, and it was just like incredible, and all the people in the audience were, you know, trying to get a peep in at what he was doing, because many people hadn't heard that instrument before. But anyway, the oudou originates from Nigeria. It's a clay drum. This is called a utar version of the oudou, and there's lots of different versions of oudou. We can see from some of the images that are just about to come up that there are lots of different shapes and sizes of oudou. It's quite a huge family of drums. This is one of the modern day drums from LP. You can see it's almost like a bit like Starship Enterprise actually, but it's a very cool drum. Oudous generally are differentiated from the South Indian ghatam in that an oudou will have two holes. You can see there's one here on the top, and there's another one on the funnel there. With the other shaped drums, there's a hole on the side and a hole on the top. So a very cool drum that you can get a lot of different tones and sounds from. Really cool drum, and you can imagine for all sorts of percussion, especially, you know, out into a contemporary hybrid environment. It's a very, very valuable drum for the modern percussionist. In Nigeria, they generally tend to come in a set of four, a family of four drums, and in the same way that African drums come together, as a family of tones with interlocking parts. The whole rhythm is built up as a composite of all those parts interlocking together as one thing. So we're going to look at some very basic beginning techniques on this instrument. Now you have to remember that it's a hybrid instrument for the modern day percussionist. A lot of the techniques that you'll see percussionists playing on this drum will come from conga players' technique or bongo players' technique, tabla, split hand technique, Indian split hand technique, darabuka technique. All these techniques can be employed on the oud, and we're going to look at a few basic starting points. So we're going to start off with a simple pattern involving single strokes, right left, and we're just going to have one bass tone on the first stroke, which is played by this part of the hand striking over the hole. Now, one of the things about this bass tone is the speed of the withdrawal of the stroke. You get a different pitch. So if it's very fast, you get a very high pitch tone. If it's very slow, then you get a much lower tone. And using that in a kind of glissando kind of way is one of the things that gives a lot of character to the oud. So we've got the bass tone. We'll just play a simple, cover and leave it there sort of approach. And then we're going to use our fingertips on the shell of the drum. Now, as I said, there's lots of different techniques that you can use, bongo technique, tabla technique, different stuff. We're just going to use full hand strokes for the moment. We'll use our fingertips. Notice how much pressure you leave. That's completely closed, completely open. So depending on how you play the drum, there's, besides the glissando that you get from the hole, there's a lot of different variations you can get from the resonance of the body as well. So we're just going to have right left, right left, right left, right left, bass, treble, treble, treble. Notice you get a little bit of up glissando when you take your hand off of the hole. Depending on the speed of the pattern, that will change in accordance to that. So now, with the full version of example one, we do single speed and double speed. So try and keep all the strokes very smooth, and you don't want to be playing too loud at this point in time because we want to be adding some accents in later on. So let's look at a slightly different example. Example 2, we're going to do single and double speed again, and we're going to break up the pattern a little bit to make a slightly different groove to help us on our early stages of learning some simple approaches on the instrument. Still right left, right left, right left, bass, bass, right left, bass. see, it's a very cool rhythm, even a cool instrument, even with these simple rhythms. You know, it's actually immediately an effective drum, and that's what makes it such an exciting thing for any percussionist to bring into their setup, because even with very basic technique, if you don't know anything about Indian hand techniques, or, you know, different combinations of using multiple fingers, such as Turkish technique and split hand technique, you can still, you know, do a lot of interesting things on the instrument, even here with just the simple single stroke roll. So we're going to start to add some accents in now. So an accent really is only differentiated from an ordinary stroke, shall we say, by the distance it travels. So at the moment we're travelling this far. So for an accent we just come out further. So you can see I'm just coming out this far for the accent, and probably the non-accents are kind of this far out. So we're going to have a simple pattern that looks at including an accent in it. It's quite similar to the last pattern, but we fill in the all of the eighth notes, and we add an accent in there. So another option, as I said, there's lots of different techniques and hand techniques you can use. Because I've studied tabla, I tend to do a lot of my accenting on the drum with the first finger or the third finger. So with the first finger. So I'm going to play that pattern again, but I'm going to accent it with the first finger, which is a stroke that's very common in tabla playing. So you can see that the finger stroke is really clear, very, very staccato, very sharp, in comparison to the accent with the four fingers. So it's up to you, you know, choose which is most comfortable. The four-fingered accent is fine. For a lot of the examples, I'm going to be accenting using the first finger. So let's just use the same concept, but make the pattern, you know, a little bit more involved. We're going to look at example 4, and we're going to have divided into 3 plus 3 plus 2 as eighth notes. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So you can see we're going right, left, right, left, right, left still. There's no difference in the sticking. Right, left, 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 right, left. So we can see it's a pretty interesting pattern, again with very simple technique. So now let's rearrange that. So first of all, we've had 3, 3, 2. Let's have 3, 2, 3. So this is example 5. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. We can also start to break patterns up and do patterns in different ways. So we don't have to be playing, continuous notes with you know, bass tones and accents and other strokes, ghost strokes or slightly muted strokes. We can break patterns up and do many different things just with simple hand combinations. So in example 6, we're going to have a slightly broken up pattern with an accent and, you know, kind of a complete kind of rounded shape to it. One, two, three, four.